Hello, welcome to the June 30th, 2023 Club Cubase live stream. My name is Greg Undo and I'm the host of the live stream. And if you have not attended a live stream before, how it works is you can ask questions live in the chat field, or you can simply send questions in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. Today we will be going for about 2 hours and then migrate to our Zoom social meetup starting in about 2 hours from now. I just posted the link. I'll try to post it about every 30 minutes or so for people that that need to get into this, that want to join us for the Zoom social meetup. Just a great way to kind of meet each other and hear other people speak besides myself. So when asking questions for the Club Cubase live stream, if you could indicate which version of the program that you are using, so whether it's Cubase LE, AI, Elements, Artist, or Pro, and if also you could specify which operating system and which version number. So if you're running version 10, 10.5, 11, or 12, that information is helpful. Realize that when you ask questions, my ability to answer them in a real-time manner will soon be eclipsed by the number of questions. I'll try my best throughout the live stream to catch up. But if you don't see an immediate response to your question, if you could avoid asking the same question repeatedly, that would be helpful. Just makes it go faster. And if you want to, we should have all the topics indexed and pinned to the top of the comments field with timestamps several hours after the live stream and the Zoom social meetup ends. I have to watch the live stream and just document all the questions and type in the times. And if you wanted to search for topics that have been covered in previous live streams, you could go to cubaseindex.com, and you want to thank Jan for his contributions with that. We also want to give special thanks to our two moderators, Agent K and Jazz Dude. They're not Steinberg employees, they just do it to make it a better community. And also special thanks to Jazz Dude for his work with the Cubase Nation Discord. So once again, my name is Greg Undo. I am the host of the live stream. And I work for Yamaha Corporation of America, which is the U.S. distributor of Steinberg products in the U.S. And I'll be the host. And if you're watching live, please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. Or even if you're watching afterwards, you could put it in the comments field. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. So first question we had was, how do you fade a project from the editor using Cubase Artist 10.5 on PC? Okay, so if you want it to do like the whole project, you'll probably see an input output channels folder. And here we're going to see we have our outputs, and this is our stereo out. And then what we want to do is to just come over here, and then we could just draw in a fade like so. So just do it on that. And as we do this, the master fader, as we play along here, I'll just go ahead and solo a track. You'll see that the master fader will just automate and completely fade out following the automation. So you can automate the particular master fader right there, but if you wanted to enter in the data, go to the input output folder, and the stereo out will always have a place on the main project window so that you could just draw in different fade-ins and fade-outs as necessary. All right, let me just jump to my other document here with the questions. All right, so we see a question, will Cubase 14 in December get artificial intelligence to get any sound? So I'm not sure if it is, the next version will probably be Cubase 13. I'm not sure when it's going to be released. But I wouldn't anticipate where you can say, I want an FM pad with a Juno 106 bass and an 808 drum machine and this string quartet and a mellotron with a female singer. Give me a song. So I don't think that's going to happen. There's a lot of... It really depends on what your definition of artificial intelligence is. There's a lot of stuff in Cubase that could be deemed that, like, creating, suggestions for chords and harmonies, or creating vocal harmonies, Some of the instruments have some AI functions for coming up with kicks, like in Backbone, but I wouldn't anticipate it where it's going to be, make me a song in this style and have Cubase generate all the data for you. So, all right, so wonderful to see Uno Memento from Finland. Okay, so we see a question from Alessandro Braz. Says, "Hi Greg, how do I change the setting of the playback position to go back to where playback was initially started every time I stop playback rather than following the playback?" So if you go to your preferences under transport, so we'll just find our transport and you'll see return to start position on stop. So without that activated, as I hit play, it'll just kind of stop where it is and continue. But with that preference activated, again, so we'd say return to start position on stop. So let's say we're going to start roughly at measure 7. So as I come here, then I hit stop on the space bar, it'll go right back to measure 7. And that's how you could change that behavior. So once again, go to preferences, to transport, and you could activate return to start position on stop. So let me know if that's helpful for you. Okay, so we see how can I participate in the Zoom meetings from Uno Memento from Finland. Last time I tried, I clicked on the link, was asked for an email address. I couldn't move forward. I have sometimes managed to join in though, so it should be, usually just clicking on the link. So I'm not sure, if you have the Zoom software, I don't think it requires an account, but I think it's pretty straightforward that you could just do it straight from the web browser as well from the provided link. But you could email me at clubcubase@steinberg.de if you're having problems with that, getting on today. All right, so we see Stefan checking in from Sweden. All right, we have Matt Elston from London. Glad you can make it today. All right, and we have Jan from Stockholm at cubaseindex.com and Soren, both from Sweden. Thanks for being online. All right, Dallas LaRue asks, what is the difference between freezing and disabling a track? Do they both take all resources from that track out of the project? I'm still having the performance meter peaking at times. So if we have a virtual instrument track, so let's say we have this event here, this Midi event, and if we freeze the track, that would basically have an audio file playback in lieu instead of the particular instrument. So if this was like a really heavy CPU instrument, that as we play it back, that would still sound, but instead of doing the real-time processing, when it's frozen, it's just going to play back an audio file. But if the track is disabled, so let's say if I come here and I have this particular track, we'll say we have our little vocals, and let me just get the control room set up here. All right, let me just check my connections real quick. Okay, but if we, at this point, just choose to disable the track, that particular track is not going to sound. So it will free up the resources, but it also turns off all of the events on that particular track from playing back. So let me just, so once again, freeze will play back the file, and disable will disable all the processing going on for that particular track, as well as not have, so disabling will have the track not play back. Just check my audio settings here real quick. Okay, So those are the differences. Okay, so we see from Ecstasy Tunes just asks how to do analog summing in Cubase. Thanks. So, anytime that, if what most people would consider summing, there's kind of different definitions, but if you wanted to do analog summing, what you could do is take all of the sources here, and you need an audio interface with a lot of outputs. Take each track, route it to a separate output from your audio interface into a summing mixer, and then to take the output of the mixer and just feed that back into a stereo audio track to recapture it. So, everything in Cubase is going to be digital until it leaves your audio interface. So just take each track, feed it into your audio interface via discrete outputs. And then, so most people would do, like when you're considering summing, that you're going to kind of mix all the different sources together, feed it into a summing device, and then capture the output of the summing device back in as a track, or record it somewhere else if you need it to. So, but there's no, I don't know any DAW that is going to internally do analog summing. So you have to feed it out to hardware and then capture it back. All right, wonderful to see Razel from Denmark. Glad you can make it. And Michael Pierce. We hope to see you on the Zoom meetup. Always great to catch up with Michael. Look forward to seeing your photos of Scotland. All right, we have Peter from Montreal. We have Lawrence from Rhode Island. Thanks for joining and being on. All right, so we see Larry B. from Brampton saying after a couple days of wildfire smoke in Canada, they finally have clear skies. Yeah, so all the smoke has come down into the Washington, D.C. area where I live. So, all right, great to see Nick and John Costigan. All right, and we have Femi from Nigeria. Thanks for joining. Okay, so we see question. I would like to know what is the best way to use the 8 faders of my MIDI controller to control the mixer. I understand that it's controlled by banks of 8. Is there a way to assign buttons in a controller to be able to move the banks? So if you're in the MIDI remote, so I'm going to go here to my trusty Korg Nano control, and I'm going to switch this to like a mixer. So right now, if I have a number of different tracks, and I move my faders, I could just see this, and then if I wanted to move like the next bank of faders, we could just come over and have like a different bank selection of faders. So to set this up in the MIDI remote, all you'd have to do once you have the MIDI remote, you could just, so I have these buttons assigned, and what this will do, there's going to be a function for next mixer bank. So you could assign like a button to go, to previous bank or next bank. So if we go to our mapping assistant, we could now just come over here and we'll say, so let's say we'll go to like our mix console, mixer bank zone, and then you'll see actions. So you could say next mixer bank, previous mixer bank. So you could do 8 channels at a time, and we can see kind of outlined by the white here that as we will go back, we can just simply navigate to and from the previous and next mixer banks from these particular buttons right here. So just go take 2 buttons, and all you have to do is under Mix Console, go to Actions, you'll see next mixer bank, previous mixer bank, and that will allow you to increment the 8 channels, whichever 8 channels you have for your particular project. All right, Alessandro just asks, this might be a weird question, but is it possible to create a feedback loop in Cubase, as it could be useful to create interesting sound design? So we could do some, some of the plugins internally can kind of feed back into themselves, but as a rule of thumb, we don't want to have the program able to create feedback loops from a conceptual part. Also, like, people get crazy and could sue us if they create a feedback loop and they lose their speakers or something. So generally we don't necessarily have, we kind of err on the side of not allowing you to create feedback loops, which I think is a pretty good, it's a pretty good concept. And we also see about the 8 faders on your Midi control. So again, any 8 faders that you create, and we see this about faders will send CC messages. So if I wanted to just create, I'll just connect one here. We could at this point just say, okay, I want to, let me just go ahead and we'll start from scratch, setting up a remote control. So I'll just delete this. Okay, so now I wanted to, let's say, add a remote. And I'll just make this, I'll do brand new. So you may see your vendor listed here. So let's just say Choy Sauce. And it's a 100 millimeter model. And then I'm going to choose just give it a different name. All right, and we're going to choose our Midi in and out port. So we'll just say, okay, let's get to my Choy Sauce 100, Choy Sauce 100. All right, so now I want to create faders, and I want these faders to be long. So now that I have that mapped, I can just come over here and I move the faders, and it's automatically adding the fader bank. So once we have this done, then you could just have, if you had a button on your device, then you would just map that to your previous to the previous and next bank function. So that's how you could get it set up. Even though this device is spitting out MIDI CCs, it's it's being, those MIDI CCs are being remapped to control different functions inside of Cubase for like your mixer volumes. All right, sorry, just have a call coming in. Okay. All right. So you see John Costigan on. Gerald Ely checking in from Martinez, California. Glad you can make it today. All right. So we have Samag engineering, mixing, and mastering engineer saying hi. All right. So we see Larry B. Can you please show an example of opening a song, recording in a different sample rate? I always seem to get the wrong answer. As the timing shifts once it's converted. Okay, so what you could do, so let's say if we start off, see if I have it in my, yeah, we'll try this. Okay, so if you wanted to convert the sample rate of your project, so we'll get just quick sonic, like where you get your harmonic sense of the key. So what I do is, let's say, okay, we are in 44.1. So if I want to convert this to 48, I'll just come directly over here in the project. We'll set our sample rate to 48K. And we will convert. All right, and it'll ask us, do you want to keep the original files? I'll keep them. It says, do you want to keep audio events at their sample positions? Choose no. So now as we would play back, the files are now 48K. So that last step to keeping versions at your at the sample positions, you probably want to choose no there. Sorry, I have someone blowing up my phone. Just send them a quick text. All right. Bear with me just for a moment. All right. So we see Michael Pierce, just very happy that he fixed the group routing when importing tracks. So yeah, and you see that Steinberg listens, just in case there was a question from last live stream. So yeah, there's a 12.07 version that was just released this week, about 2 days ago. All right, so we have a question from Egor Sokolov. The easiest way to print multi-channel Midi to audio in real time? Thanks. Okay. Okay, so I'm not sure if you need discrete tracks, but let me just jump back to this project. Okay, so, you know, an easy way of doing it is, all right, just a multi-channel MIDI to audio in real time. Okay, so, you know, one of the ways to do it, let's say if we have a, let's say we go here and we have a drum pattern. So let's say we play this pattern. All right, and just make sure that the original drum pattern isn't playing. Okay, so, and let's say in this particular instrument, I have these devices being routed to different outputs in the mixer. So let's say, okay, I want this kick to be sent out to output 2, my snare to output 3, my hi-hat to output 4, output 5 for my overheads, and let's say my room output 6. Okay, and I have this particular event. So what I want to do is to just say, let's take that particular event, and if we go to render in place, I could just say, okay, let's go to my render settings, and we'll choose kind of our, I think we could choose our channel settings at this point, and we will just say render, and then each of the tracks is automatically rendered out because the rendering is kind of based. So it's our room, let's say our kick, snare, hi-hat. So that's probably the fastest way of just being able to do that. You could also take each of these outputs, if you route it to individual groups. So let's say if I wanted to do it, another method would be just to come over here, take this particular track, this instrument track, let's route it to a group. And a lot of times I may have just like a render group. And then I could create an audio track, and I want its input to be from my render group. And as I hit play, at this point I could just play back this particular instrument and record it as audio in real time. So that way the instrument is being routed through the group is the audio input for the audio track. So as we play, then we could just listen to it. So you could route multiple outputs of an instrument to different groups and then print them if needed. So let me know if that's helpful for what you want to accomplish. All right, let me get my comments computer on. Thank you for all the questions from everyone. All right. All right, so we see why Cubase doesn't have the option of quitting the VST that crashed instead of crashing the all of Cubase. So it could really depend upon the plugin itself. And I think that, you know, we are restricted from doing plugin sandboxing on Mac OS. So when we try to do stuff, it tries to, we want to make sure that it's available cross-platform and not have features. So, you know, I know that the development I know that with product planning that there's been discussion of this, but, you know, it could be more complex, you know, and sometimes plugins can crash in very unexpected ways. Some plugins can crash in a way that you could just turn off that particular track and everything is fine, and some will take the whole program down, and when something is causing a crash, it could be, you know, how, you know, we can respond to a crash can be difficult to have consistency all the way through on both operating systems. All right, so we have Frederick checking in from France, and he's faithful to the live stream, so glad he can make it today. Hopefully you can make it into the Zoom meetup as well. All right, so we have Edward James checking in from Akron, Ohio. Thanks for joining us. I have a good friend that moved there a couple years ago. All right, so we see from Lawrence, he has a question about splitting up audio files. He said the info about splitting up the audio files and jam recording worked great. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, it's a great feature. I've had to use it a lot for long recordings. All right, so we see a question. When I select a Midi event, the notes in the key editor are not selected. Is there a way to turn this feature on? So a lot of times when we select an event, you know, we could, you know, let's look at it. So if I wanted to do particular types of editing, so let's say I wanted to quantize this to half notes, like this little piano part that we just heard. So we'll look at it. So even though the event is selected, we can quantize and do edits up, you know, to the entire event without having to select the particular event. So I'm going to quantize, and we see that now our quantize is quantize everything to half notes. So I didn't have to select the events to process all of the different MIDI events within the event, all the MIDI notes within a particular event or MIDI data. So let me know if there's a particular function. So while they're not selected, you know, if I come over here and let's just transpose. So let's say if I go to my MIDI menu here and we choose to transpose, so say I go up to, we can see that reflected. So I don't have to have, this is kind of selecting all of the MIDI notes within the event, but you know, if we looked at it in the MIDI editor, it may not be selected. So here within the editor, we have the option of selecting individual events, but this is going to be global. So again, if I go to my transpose setup here and we just hit this, we'll see that even though the event is selected, no individual notes are, that they still get affected by the MIDI function. So let me know if there's a particular MIDI function that's not working as a result of the individual MIDI notes or MIDI data not being selected when the event is selected, because most of the editing functions will work on the event and carry over to all the MIDI data within the particular event. Okay, so we see from Got Yours says, I'm still having issues with grouping effects channels. I want to create stem tracks later off groups, but sometimes effects channels won't allow me to put them to a group. It's weird because sometimes it does. Why? So I think, you know, it could be with the yeah, and I'm not sure if there's some changes with this in version 12 versus 11. So with version 12, we could have one effects channel that multiple groups could be sent to, and then exported without the return channels of other groups being included. But it could be the order that is, you know, if you have, so let's say if we add multiple group tracks. All right, so let's see if we could take group 4. Yeah, it looks like we could route it. But let me know if you're running, you know, sorry for hitting my mic. Let me know if you're running version 11 or version 12. But you know, in version 12, you could take one, you know, and I'm not sure if you're routing the effects groups. If the effects are depending on your setup also. So let's say if we do a reverb as an effects channel, you know, it could be that, you know, maybe this isn't being routed to the group, or it's just going straight to the stereo out. So when you render a group, that this may not be included depending upon your export audio mixdown settings. So if you have under effects, when multiple is selected, that you have the groups and sends selected there. So let me know, you know, so try some of those things and maybe give a little more information on which version. All right, so we have a question. It says, using transpose in the key editor to convert a lead or chord in a minor key to a major key or vice versa. What is the best practice here? They sound terrible when converted. So let's say if I wanted to take, we'll just, all right, so I'm just going to feed some data from chord track here, and I'll just go to this part. All right, so I'm going to assign chords to Midi. All right, so now, so say we're in G major, and we look at our part here. So let's say I wanted to transpose this to G minor. So I think we go to Midi to transpose setup. We'll say scale correction. So we'll say our current scale is going to be G major. And I want this to be, we'll say G harmonic minor. So now when I come over here and hit OK, let me just select all the notes since I'm in the editor. So you could try just doing that. So again, go to Midi, and we'll choose transpose setup, and then you could adjust just a number of scale correction there. So let me know if that works for you. See, Larry B says, thanks, Greg. The answer is always no when converting sample rates. The very last question on moving it to the position. So, and I think Michael Pierce always wondered why that defaulted to yes, which is a good question, and why anyone would want to keep it. So, and sometimes people will want to keep it, like if you recorded the audio file at one sample rate, but the project that you recorded in is in another. So like the, like the mixer that was being fed in was a different sample rate than the audio interface. So stuff like that. All right, wonderful to see Sable Winters. She has an out-of-state wedding during the Zoom hours, and we'll try to jump in between things. More important for you to be at the wedding, I'm sure, but we'll miss you, and you'll have to include a text of what new gadget you got, because we all miss our Sable gadget finds. So, and enjoy the wedding. Congratulations to the bride and groom, or to the married couple. All right, so we have a question. Is there a way to reverse the direction of the horizontal scrolling that is done with the mouse wheel and the shift key? So when we're here, it's going to, so I think if you go into the, there's not a function in Cubase, but I think if you go into the computer operating system, so let's say, okay, we'll go to our system preferences, and we'll select mouse, and then if we change the scroll direction, this may change it. So as I scroll, so that will change the scrolling. So it's going to be done kind of at the operating system level as opposed to within Cubase. So I know we've sent that feature request for a preference before, but all right, wonderful to see Benny from Sweden. Glad you can make it today. I'm going to post the Zoom meetup information. So if you, for some reason, can't get in and we end the Zoom meeting, you could just look at the beginning of the chat to find it. All right, so we have Triya Amar checking in from India. Tips of using Cubase for live broadcast mixing. So, a lot of people will be utilizing it. So, one of the things that is really helpful is, as you work in your project, so let's say we'll do a new project, and I want, so we'll come over here. So let's say we have in our VST inputs, I'll just add, let's say we have, a number of different buses. So let's say these are our inputs. So, we have a number, let's say 16 ins. So, one of the things is on the mix console, make sure that you, one, if you're doing live broadcast, always kind of check your loudness meters as we're doing this. One of the tips I do, and I've had to do this for like live concerts that are being recorded and broadcast, is select all of your input channels. So as you come, so let's say we're going to add our 16 tracks. Okay, so I like to put all 16 tracks into like a folder. So we'll just right click and we'll say move selected tracks to new folder. And this way I could arm the folder and monitor the folder, and all the tracks will be record enabled, so I don't have to do it all one at a time. And I also like to take all of my input channels, because if your levels are a bit erratic, I will select all the input channels and put them in Q-Link, and that way I could adjust all my levels just by moving one fader down on input channels. So I've run into this a lot with live concerts. That's the loudest we will ever get in soundcheck, and then the third song it's already up 12 dB, and you have to between songs gradually just lower the level as the volume is increasing. So some people use consoles, but you could definitely do it in Cubase. So consider always keeping your broadcast meters here, all of your tracks in a particular folder, and quick linking like your input channels. So that will help you a lot. And welcome to the live stream. Glad you can make it today. All right, always wonderful to see Kerwin Young from Atlanta, so glad you can make it. All right, so a question from Doug O. In the logical editor, is it possible to write an automation that will render and iterate through VSTs, tonality, and instrument key switches? So, the logical editor doesn't necessarily doesn't necessarily add data. The logical editor is kind of designed to, take existing data and modify that kind of using different conditions or Boolean setups, as opposed to like generating a particular part or generating CC data. So I don't think it's going to be set up to do that, unfortunately. So, and kind of follow-up questions to this is, for example, say I start in C1 and render that. Could it then go up one tone to trigger the next tonality and render that? So generally, it's not going to generate the particular note to do that, and it's not going to trigger the rendering. So, if you have a situation like that, it could be that you want to just have the key switch written in, which is pretty easy to do. So let's see if we could just come over. So if I wanted to come over here to my expression map, and I'll just import the key switches. And we'll look at the key switches here. So, what we could do is, just enter in the particular key switches. But I don't think that the logical editor is going to be used to actually say, okay, let's do this and then create a render. So probably the best use is just to, record in the key switches or enter your key switches in and then render the file, but it's not going to be kind of an automated thing. So sometimes that may not be as useful because, you may not want it to go up and do trills and then do spiccato, then, the order of the articulations to the mapping. So let me know if I misunderstood. All right. So we see this follow up from Got Your. Just says, said Pro 12 to the latest version of PC. Sometimes they do both things. I want a reverb effects to go to a drum group. Won't let it happen. All right, so let me just come back to, let's say I'll just create a quick drum group. Okay, so I'm going to take these tracks, send it to a drum group. Okay, so we'll just add a group channel to the selected. Okay, we'll call this drum group. And on this drum group, I just want to add an effects channel to that. All right, so as I come here, let's get to my mixer. So let's say, so here we see our send going into all right, so I'll just, let me just, I think I, all right, so once we're in our particular drum group, and I'll just, we'll go to our send. So this send on the group is going in, and let's say if I want to create a number of effects tracks here. And we'll put these into a group. That now, as we play, I'll just take my solo off here. So it seems like, you know, this one group will, let's come over to, say, the bass here. And we'll go to the sends. So let's say if I want to send it to so this is all right, I'm just gonna add another effects here. Seems like we should be hearing some reverb on this. Let me just. just come quickly to the bass event here. Just try it. So it seems like I should be hearing the effect on that. Let me just try adding its own effect send, just to different reverb. Alright, so that's kind of working as expected. It's not, it's being sent there. And let's see if I take this and route this output. All right, so let's say if I send this to, there we go. So check like the, the output target here and see. So let's say if I send this to group, so that may be I may be trying to create a feedback loop that's not there. But if you have a particular project that you want to send me, please feel free to send it a link to it, like via WeTransfer or something like that, to clubcubase@steinberg.de. All right, wonderful to see Mark Rabin on. Just came back from Bob Marshall Wilderness, where he found a bunch of caves. Sounds like a great trip. Envious. Great. Wonderful to see Best Korean Jesus on the live stream, as well as Heartbreak Time Machine, both from California, as well as John Barry from England. All right. And we see Bruce from Simi Valley. All right, so all right, so we see Rude Screen from South UK checking in as well. All right, sorry, my chat field just jumped on me. All right, so we see questions says, hey, I had an idea about fixing phase issues. So is there a possibility to fix phase shifting issues on mono, stereo synths and bass lines in Cubase? If yes, Are there any suitable plugins available? So a lot of times what you could do, because phase is going to be related to time, what I would do is on the particular, if there's a MIDI track that you wanted to kind of correct the phase of, is you could take an instrument track with its data and come over here, and you could actually adjust it in milliseconds directly here. Let me see. I guess on audio track we have the track delay, but if it was for a MIDI instrument, what I would do is take, or let's say for our MIDI instrument here, so there is kind of a track delay. So, maybe you could adjust the timing of the track if you're having phase issues to just, have that playback. And that's a way to compensate for if you're having phasing issues in your MIDI track. So just select the instrument track, and at that point you'll see like the track delay, so you could have that delayed or playback earlier. So give that a shot. All right, so wonderful to see Michael Marshall from Somerset in UK. Just reading through comments. Everyone's happy to see everyone. It's great. Such a wonderful community. All right, so I think I'm caught up with some of the questions. I know we had questions that were sent in advance, so let me get to those. Everyone's learning their Cubase so well now. All right, and I'm going to post the Zoom meetup. So let me just post that one more time here. And we'll get started in about an hour, unless we run out of questions beforehand. Okay, so we had a couple of questions. One question was, and this may be a topic for the AI question from earlier, are there any AI tools to make transcriptions of a vocal recording to have the lyrics written out? All right, so let's try it with Spectral Layers 10, because this added a new transcription for speech, and we'll give it a shot here. All right, so let's go ahead and just take this particular project here.
Yellow coach to ferry us home. You looked my way and your heart shone through. It caught my breath while you caught me too.
So we'll just take this lead vocal file, and I'm going to select it here. And now let's we're going to go to our extensions, and this is in Spectral Layers 10 Pro, which just started shipping last week. Pretty amazing update. Okay, so now we're going to double click, and we go to the Unmix tab, and at this point go to Transcription. We'll have it do the best quality. We could choose between 9 different languages, and I'll just hit OK, and this may take a couple seconds. We'll see what it comes up with. So what this is doing is just an analysis of the vocal file. All right, so now we can see that looks like it's got the lyrics here at the bottom, and we'll zoom in. All right, so as we play.
Do you recall the day we first met? That was a long, long time ago. It was 7th grade in the school parking lot.
All right, now let's go ahead and I'll just right-click on the text and let's look at our description here. And as we listen to our song, we'll just have this kind of playback. And we'll just take a listen. Looks like it did a good job of just figuring out the lyrics here.
Do you recall the day we first met? That was a long, long time ago. It was 7th grade in the school parking lot, waiting on our yellow coach to ferry us home. You looked my way and your heart shone through. It caught my breath while you caught me too. Well, even now I'm so in love with you, just like a long, long time ago.
So you can see it looks like it did a pretty spectacular job. It's kind of scary. And now if we wanted to, we could choose to, I think we could export that particular file. If we wanted to come over here, we could choose to export it. And we could do it as a .srt file for like scripts. We could also do it as text or CSV file. Now, what's interesting, if you're a Nuendo user, you could actually have the CSV file, take that CSV file, export it, and then you could import markers based on a CSV file. So I'm going to export it to my desktop here. And if I wanted to just come over to my note, let's say now we will find that particular lyric phrase. So I'll just go to my Finder. So get my mouse to cooperate here. Right. Right, so now I have the lyrics, and if I wanted to just put those straight in, I could just come to my project notepad and paste. So if I go to my notepad here, so select all, copy, and let's go to Cubase, Notepad, and now I could paste and have the lyrics. Now, if you're a Nuendo user, you could just, so as soon as we come over here, we could now just have the lyrics as part of the Notepad. And if you're a Nuendo user, export it as a CSV file, and then you could choose to import the CSV file as a marker. So, and then the markers could be automatically populated from the particular transcription from spectral layers. So that's pretty cool. All right, so we had a question mailed in. Hi, I'm trying to figure out if it's possible to use a shortcut to toggle audio inserts in the inspector panel. I tried to toggle insert section in the inspector section in shortcuts, but that opens up the Midi inserts panel. Is there a way to make that work? So let's take a look and see Let's say if we have a number of, I'll just create a dummy audio track. And I'll just put in some inserts here. So we'll go to presets, track presets, audio, and just drag and populate some inserts on this particular track. Okay, so let's see if we can do it maybe in the project logical editor. So if you want to do it with the keyboard shortcut, you could obviously come here and just click with the mouse, and that will bypass the particular plugins. But let's see if we can do it in a project logical editor. We'll say track is property is selected, and let's do track operation. Inserts bypass, enable. Okay, so I'm going to come here to this track and all right, let me try just to, we'll say media container type equals track, and we'll see. Okay, so that will do it. And let's say if I wanted to, and then we could just toggle that. So if we have this particular setup, and let's say if I wanted to do it to a particular track, so let's say I want to do it only to tracks that are selected, we'll come here to property is set to track is selected, and then it's only going to bypass the inserts on that particular selected track. And then you could save this as a preset to just bypass inserts on selected track, go into your key command. So we'll just save it. Okay, so and now when I want to recall that via a keyboard shortcut, we'll go to key commands, and then you'll find it under process project logical editor, and we'll go to, and then you could assign a keyboard shortcut just to that particular function to have that set up. So that's a way you could turn off all the inserts using a key command. And or you could toggle just like that. All right, let me jump back to our live questions. Bear with me while I jump. Okay. Mark Rabin wants everyone to hit the like button, so don't forget that. All right, so we see Gerald is in and out today. He's dealing with a plumbing problem, so we hope you get everything resolved. It's always not fun. See, Sable's just commenting that I have an excellent memory for people and their places. Yeah, so having a good memory sometimes is a curse because you can't choose what you remember or not. So I just have, 50,000 useless memories. Sometimes I can call up, something, but, All right, so we see from Samir Shah says, hi, how do I change the EQ display to set to knobs view? Okay, so what we want to do is to, let's say we have our EQ here in this particular track, and we go to our edit channel settings. So as we do this, we'll open it up and we go to our channel EQ. At this point, we'll see this little settings. So I have kind of different sliders, but if we go to the settings, we can click on show controls as knobs. So you could have it as sliders or show controls as knobs. And then once you have that, then instead of sliders, you could adjust all the parameters just using the particular button knobs as opposed to sliders, just like that. See the Heartbreak Time Machines. Looking forward to today's Zoom. Yeah, I am as well. It's always kind of a highlight of the month. All right, so Brian Sawyer Sr. just sending bush hogging greetings from Beulahville, North Carolina. All right, so we see Kerwin Young just saying, wow, lyrics from Spectral Layers 10. And Darren Mack just saying, holy wow, that's amazing. All right. All right, so we see Bruce Bruton just saying, unfortunately, his wife is home working on her shared computer, which just happens to be his computer to Zoom on, so it can't be on his Zoom. She works from home on Fridays, so have a great Zoom meetup. Maybe you could actually do it on your phone or tablet as well. That may be an option if you have that available, Bruce. You see Gerald just asked, Gerald Ely just asked, is there anything Spectral Layers can't do? Yeah, it's pretty scary, some of the stuff that it's doing. I was, taking like an interview recording of 4 different people, and it was able to kind of isolate all of the voices into different layers for each person. So yeah, it's some voodoo magic. But Nick doesn't like the coffee it makes, so. But Gerald says he has that covered. Yeah, and I think one of the most interesting things about Spectral Layers is just the level of like version 9 was amazing when it came out for extraction, and version 10 just has taken it to a whole other level in like a year. So just kudos to those guys. And there's going to be a couple, if you go to the Steinberg YouTube channel, there are a couple of Spectral Layers live streams that are coming up, so make sure you check those out if you want to see it more in action. And I think some of them, one of them may be in Spanish as well, so I'm sure that his Spanish will be much better than mine. So see John Costigan sharing his coffee recipe, saying it's easy, and Gerald Ely just commenting that creamer is flammable. Mythbusters made a fireball from it. Yeah, so my son watched all the Mythbusters, I think, 2 summers ago, so he can remember every single episode of Mythbusters and every experiment and its outcome. All right, so we see from Alicia Record Studio, Cubase 12 Pro user here. Any ideas on why VariAudio isn't working properly? Is it a bug? I haven't been able to use it in months. So I haven't had any issues with it, but if you could let me know exactly what you're running into. So let's say I'll first just remove this. I'll just remove the extension here. And let's look at it in VariAudio. So I'm going to make sure that the edit VariAudio is enabled. So here's VariAudio. I'm going to put it on all controls. So let's say as I'm doing my VariAudio editing here, we can just do everything kind of as expected. If I wanted to move, we even have scale correction in version 12. So if you wanted to go to, like, I think this is an A major, I could just quantize all of the pitches to be in A major. So let me know, Alicia or Elisha, what problems you're having, exactly, but I don't know of any issues with, and let me know if it's every project or just a particular project. So, but that information would be helpful, and maybe if other people have had issues, and I think a lot of people would be outraged if it didn't work since it's such a central part of their particular workflows. Okay, so we're just seeing from Alicia Record Store says, I don't get any notes to show up. So, make sure, and I'll just do one from scratch here. So we'll just, something I haven't done VariAudio on here. I'll just revert. Okay, so, all right, so let's say I want to take like these files. I'm going to make just a new file out of all of these, and we'll do VariAudio. So we'll just come right over here. I'm just going to bounce selection. So we'll have a new audio file. All right, so let's say if we come over here and we'll see okay, so, and I just see kind of a further comment says on every project I only get the gray waveform, but nothing else. So one, make sure that, let's say if we come back to VariAudio, if you just see the gray, it could be that you just need to click on the button to the left of the VariAudio, so it's kind of not in a VariAudio state. So if I go to try to move a note segment, so that it's not going to work. So just if it's all gray and it looks like this, just click right here that you want to be able to edit the VariAudio, and then you should be able to kind of move the different components around like that. All right, so we see again. So we see, is there a solution how to fix phase shifting issues in mono, stereo, synth, and bass lines in Cubase? Are there any plugins available on it? I couldn't find them right away. So I think we answered this earlier. So generally, if it's going to be any instrument part, try to just select the instrument part and you'll see the timing, and you could also do that for MIDI tracks as well. So this way the events could play back earlier or later in time. If it's VST instruments, there shouldn't be any phase issues because the actual MIDI data is sample accurate. But if it's going to be external instruments, their MIDI timing could fluctuate quite a bit. Depending on the MIDI interface and the device itself. Some of the devices weren't very fast, could have varying speeds depending on the instrument itself, but try to just come over and, if you're hearing it out of phase, just simply, adjust your value here in milliseconds, and then you should be able to change the phase relationship of that with other tracks. But if I'm misunderstanding the question, please just let me know. Okay. All right, so we see from Vishnu, so wonderful to see you on the live stream today. just says, for a strange reason, if I select 4 or 5 tracks together and try to color them by selecting them, only the regions changes color, track panels remains the same. All right, so let's say I want to color all of these tracks, and let me just drop a media file on there real quick on one of them. All right, so let's say I'm here, and I have an event selected, and then I say, okay, I want to select, these tracks and colorize them. So I come over here and I color, and then they don't change colors because the event that is selected has higher priority. So the event changes color and the tracks don't. So make sure that you have no events selected. Select your channels. And at this point, we could just colorize all your channels at once just by picking the color right there. So let me know if that's helpful. So make sure no actual events are selected. And then the tracks themselves should be able to be colorized. All right. So we see just Alicia just saying, yes, I've used it for years. It's about to VariAudio, but all of a sudden it stopped working. So let me know if you see that, just to, turn on the button, that one button, if that helps. And let me just look at one other thing that might have an impact on the VariAudio. So I see John Koskian asking if the track is locked. So let me just come over here, and I'm going to reset all changes to VariAudio. So let's see if locking the track, or if the, once it's kind of done the selection. So let's see if we go here and lock this particular track. Yeah, so if the track is locked, that could prevent you from going in. Also, if the track is, see also, Alicia, if the track is frozen. But I think, from how you're describing it, that it might just be, once we come over here to the edit VariAudio, that, if you see the gray parts, so if I select something else, then we go back to VariAudio, you may have to just turn that back on. All right. All right, so we see from Thomas Zaleski, blessings, Greg. Can I use the VST multi-panner for effects in a Midi track? How can we automate it? So if you wanted to do, let's say we have a, we'll do just a quick instrument track here. All right. And I'm going to just create kind of I'll just start from scratch so we could make sure this is kind of set up correctly. So we could take the audio from a MIDI source and kind of do the routing. So let's make sure first that we're going to be at, I'll set up for a kind of a Dolby Atmos. So we're going to make sure that we're at 48K. We're going to check our buffer size on our audio interface to make sure we're at 512. Okay. So I want to add an audio track, or we'll add an instrument track. So let's do maybe a pad shop. And for this, you may have to have headphones on to kind of hear it spin around if you wanted to. So let's say. Okay, so now I want to, if I was doing something like for Dolby, I would say, okay, let's get to our ADM authoring for Dolby Atmos. And let's just run the setup assistant. Okay, so now I want to choose my down mix to binaural. All right, and we've kind of created our bed. And once we go to our panner, so I'll close this window out. So I'll just come to the audio panner at this point, and so if you have headphones on, you may hear this kind of spin around. And we could adjust the height. So you could just, completely automate that and export it as. So let's say we'll put it here. So if I wanted to record and automate that one particular note, we'll come over. Then as we play back, let me just take it out of loop mode here. Sorry about that. So we'll click on automate and record. So now come back, and all of my panning information will be carried over. So the MIDI track itself isn't going to pan, but the audio can be panned. So the audio coming out of a virtual instrument or an external instrument, that could be panned to move around and navigate. So let me know if that's kind of what you want it to do, Thomas. Okay, I'm going to paste the live stream, the Zoom meetup link again. So we see Alicia just saying, I just did again a different project with a freshly rendered track, no locks or anything, click the button, nothing. I wish I could send a picture. So if you want to send a picture, you can email a picture to me at clubcubase@steinberg.de if you want to take a screenshot, and I'd be happy to take a look at it. So if you want to do like a full screen view of your VariAudio editor, so send it to clubcubase@steinberg.de. Yeah, everyone's missing Michael Team's Friday ice cream. So, all right, let me see if we have any more questions. But yeah, if you want to send that All right, so we see Thomas just says thank you, yes. So yeah, you could do that kind of with any sound source that you want. All right, let me just go back. Just close this project out. All right, let me take a look at, see if we get Alicia's screenshot. She posted it. Jazz Dude posted a link. Okay, so all right, let me just look at something real quick. All right, looks like you have that. All right, we'll see if we get Alicia sorted out. I think I remember seeing this once. Let me see. All right, just kind of reading through a couple of notes here. So some of the notes I'm seeing just seems like it's going to be try starting the program. It could be maybe dealing with preferences. So when you start Cubase up, and I'll just show you here quickly. So I'm not sure if you're on Mac or Windows, but let's get to the applications. See if you come over here. I'll start, and if you're on Mac, it's going to be Command Option plus Shift. If you're on Windows, it's going to be Alt Control plus Shift. So, and hold it down right after you start the program, and hold those down. It seems like it might be a preferences issue. And I think I have my keyboard on the wrong computer. Sorry about that. I'll start it with Nuendo, which will be kind of the same thing. So again, Alt Control Shift or Command Option Shift. Hold it down right after it starts, and then you should get the ability to run it in safe start mode, and try to disable the program preferences and see if that works. And then what you could do is just simply delete the program preferences if that does do the trick for you, Alicia. So let me know. So again, start the program, and right after, Alt Control Shift on Windows or Command Option Shift on Mac, and hold it down and start it in safe mode, and see if that helps you with that. Sorry that you ran into that problem. All right, wonderful to see Tim Weinheimer from Mission Viejo. Glad you could make it today. All right, I'll just get these other programs shut down. All right, bear with me just for a second. I don't have enough audio interfaces on my system here. All right. Okay, so we have a question from Sounds Like Matt. I'd like to download and play with Austin Hull's demo for Cubase 12, but I'm on 10.5. Is there anything I need to keep in mind because selecting replacement plugins for the ones that aren't available? And he also says hi. So you know, if the plugin isn't available, you may get a message just saying that the plugin isn't available, and then you could just simply, you know, open up the project and it'll say missing plugin on this insert slot or whatever for any that you don't have in your Cubase 10.5. So I think that, you know, you won't have any problems, you know, opening it up. You know, there could be some plugins that will be missing, but you should be able to get the files to play back as well. All right. So we see question. Hi, Greg. How to remove that new audio drivers found pop up every time Cubase Pro starts? Sometimes it's annoying, not a big deal though. So I'm not sure if you're on Mac or Windows. Sometimes the operating system could, usually you get the message when the last audio interface that was used isn't turned on, and then it'll prompt you for, okay, we see your audio interface isn't there, so let's try to actually create an audio interface. Like you probably want your audio files to be routed and play back from somewhere, and then it'll try to give you that option. So generally that's what it is. On some older Mac OS versions, it would always do it because it wanted to, and this is kind of a nightmare for a lot of computer labs at colleges where they have 40, 50 machines in a lab, where if on some older Mac OS versions, if you had an HDMI cable connected to your monitor, Apple would always try to prompt you to send the audio out of the HDMI port. So if it saw that there was an HDMI connection, that would take priority over every other audio driver that was currently set up and configured in your system. So sometimes it could be imposed by the operating system, and sometimes it's just when it's not seeing the pre-existing the last state of when Cubase was open, that audio interface not being available to access. All right, always wonderful to see David M. from Liverpool on. Glad you can make it today. I hope to see you on the Zoom meetup. All right, so we have a question. When using the pencil tool in the tempo track, is there an easy way to select and always land on the start of a measure? I tend to be slightly off at times. Thanks. Okay, so let's take a look. So I'll just add a tempo track. Okay, so let's say I'm just gonna, so I think if we turn snap on, so right now I could draw in tempo events. I'm gonna set my snap and let's set it to bar, that now I could only input, I can't put in tempo values you know, anywhere in the bar, but if I hit the letter J to turn snap off, that I could freely put in tempo values. But as soon as J is turned on, that it's, and I have my grid here set to bar, that it's only going to allow me to put those tempo values in at the downbeat of the measure. But with snap turned off, or if I'm just kind of guessing, so let's say I'm here and I think, oh, I'm really close, so I'm just going to come there, and if we look at it, we can see that that's going to be off slightly. But if we undo that and have snap, and again the letter J, and as we zoom in, now we'll see that that is going to be just dead on. So it will comply and kind of follow snap values as well. All right, we see Michael Pierce has to jump out real quick. His video editing systems in the background messed up, looks like. All right, so we have Spike Williams checking in from a rainy Rhondda, Wales. He says he got spectral layers 10 and it's mind-blowing. So yeah, it is pretty scary. So we're so happy to have that in the Steinberg portfolio of offerings. All right, I had one other question that I saw on a Facebook group. There was someone that was having problems with zooming, so I wanted to just kind of show this. So we'll just take a look at this project here. And I'm going to route this. Let's revert this particular project. All right, so someone is having problems with their computer, and they called it the helicopter zooming, where you just kind of can zoom just like this. And they said that as soon as, and one of the things that you could do is as you're zooming with this method, and this is kind of a cool zooming method that we could zoom in, but often what people run into is they zoom in, and as soon as they release, that's kind of the start position. So if you want to zoom and not have the position change, all you have to do is just kind of come to this particular value, and then I could just drop zoom without affecting the playback. So if I wanted to zoom in more, hold down the shift key, and then we could just kind of drop zoom. And they were having it go like to measure 4096 when doing that, but I don't have any inadvertent jumping when I do this on my Mac or PC versions. Just kind of goes, and if I wanted to navigate using my scroll wheel, we can still do that and not affect the playback and not have it jump. So so I know it was on one of the Facebook groups, so we figured we'd just show it here and we could use as a reference. All right, so we see Uno Memento just asks if I will change stock spectral layers to 10, how much it costs. So I think, you know, it could really depend upon your country. So I think when I look at it, it's going to be kind of localized for United States. I think it's maybe $69, but we'll take a look. So let's see, spectral layers 10. right. So we'll say bispectral layers, and we'll say Pro, and it says $299 by itself. And let's say if we update from Pro 9, it's gonna be $79 in the US. But it may be 79 euros, but you get check because all these prices will be kind of localized for your country on the website. But roughly in the US, it's around $80. All right, so we see from VTS 404, just out of curiosity, which is your favorite stock reverb and delay plugin in Cubase? And it's directed to Jazz Dude and myself. So I tend to, my favorite reverb, and reverb I tend to use more than anything else, is just coming over to, is the Reverence. I like the concept of convolution reverbs, where it's basically taking a sample of your particular room, where it's sounding more like a natural organic space. And I also like the ability of taking this and being able to reverse. If I want to get creative with it, a lot of people don't think of convolution reverbs as like a real creative tool. So you could load in and import your own wave files as impulses. But another thing that you could do is, let's say, I'll go here, let's get to the sends, and I'll send it to my Reverence. So let's say I take my snare top. This is kind of a, bad 80s production trick. And you could reverse the reverb on it. So let's say if I come here, so as you audition, you kind of get like really interesting reverse reverb effects. And also, while you think of a convolution reverb as being primarily for like a real environment, check out the different plate options that are in there. So there's a really amazing, like a 2 second, 3 second, 4 second plate reverb that are included within that. For delays, if I want to do something very creative, where let's say I want to get like really tweaky and I want my delay to cascade and pitch shift up and have this tap, run through a filter, but this other tap not. I will go for the multi-tap delay. This is probably the most comprehensive delay plugin imaginable. So you'll have kind of different characters, for each of the different taps. You could come over here and choose to expand, so you could have, like 7 different effects on each tap, and you could set various amounts of taps. You could also run through different plugins on the delay. So if you want to get like super creative, when I want a fast, easy delay, most people always think of a stereo delay, but like when I just want to throw a delay on something really quick, and this trick I just learned kind of watching my friend Clay Oswald work, was, when he, instead of like having delays ping pong all the time, which, could be just a little annoying, just a very simple mono delay. And to have this tempo synced with the particular performance, so regardless of what your project is, if your project tempo is speeding up and slowing down, you could always have this be a quarter note delay. So I tend to use like a mono delay, and sometimes I hear people having all sorts of cascading stereo delays that are slightly out of time. Like if you're putting on 2 different sources and maybe those 2 sources aren't, particularly accurate rhythmically, that then you just get to hear the inaccuracies delayed over time and bouncing in different speakers, and it can be a bit annoying to the listener. So I tend to, for a simple quick delay, I use mono delay, and then when I want to get really creative and do kind of like really esoteric, like atmospheric guitar delay stuff, that's when I would get into multi-tap delay. Jazz You'd also likes reverence, and probably for the same reasons I am, likes the more natural room emulations. All right, so Uno Momento says, what version of spectral layers is included in Cubase 12? So you have spectral layers 1, and that's version 9. So currently there is no spectral layers 1 version 10 that has been created. So it's currently version spectral layers 1 version 9. So. All right. Oh, we finally have Michael Teams from Weatherford, Texas. So he has 7 minutes to give everyone ice cream. All right. So glad that Michael can make it. All right. So we see from Sounds Like Matt, who asks, how aggressively do you EQ out low end from vocals in your mixes? I've been surprised to see how much some great producers cut out. Almost sounds thin to me to solo, but apparently great in the mix. So there tends to be a lot of people that, what's interesting to me is a lot of people that I think it's more of a particular workflow. When I worked in studios, like in the early 90s, in the old days of large format consoles, you'd see that everyone would kind of use the same, there's definite workflow habits. It's, I would see world famous engineers and producers and vocalists come in, and it's like, this microphone, I need this serial number Neumann microphone, and it has to be, positioned on the mic stand where it's upside down. And you're like, it's like, oh, why upside down? It's like, oh, I had a hit record once and it was upside down. And people tend to use, so they would have an upside down microphone for the rest of their career because they thought it was that enabled them to get the #1 record, not that it was like a really great song or they had a very clever music video at the time. It was that the microphone was upside down, and they were convinced that that was what made it happen. And people would also put on a bass. I always put this API 550 EQ on, graphic EQ. Always put that on the bass. Why? We just always put it on the bass. Didn't question. This is what, it's kind of tried and true. So a lot of times when people are doing, just one of the traditional habits is to just low cut your filter. It's like just do a low cut filter on all your vocals to clean it up. So let's say we listen to this and we'll solo. And a lot of times when you look at it, and you see what's on the particular tracks. So let's say if I come here, we'll just say, okay, let's do low cut. So I'm just going to turn this on. Like there's a lot of vocals where you don't see any audio material in those frequencies. This one you kind of do. So, so a lot of people will just cut out a lot of frequencies that there's nothing to cut out for the sake of they always put on like a high pass filter or low cut filter. So a lot of times it could be just, habit that, and many mixing and great studios are just, these habits are just built up. So I'm always going to cut the low end of the reverb, and it's like, oh, why doesn't the reverb sound warm? I put a high pass filter in all the reverb. And so sometimes when people are doing it, there's a lot of vocal tracks where you may not notice it at all. So let's try maybe Beatles and Stones in our project here, or I'll just open another one. So let's try this one. And this is my friend Clay Oswald, who always does everything right. So sometimes there may not be, if there's not a lot of low-end information. So let's say we come here. So yeah, sometimes that energy isn't a lot. So and people didn't have the benefit of seeing the frequencies present on every single channel, and they would just cut it because for the sake of doing it. So if it bothers you and it sounds better, use it. If not, then don't worry about it. All right, wonderful to see Jay from Secret Studios today. All right, I'm going to post the Zoom meetup. We hope Jay can make it. All right, so we see question, and we'll do this before we migrate over to the Zoom. How do I get the MIDI notes to show flats, for example? I'm in a key that has flats instead of sharps. Okay, so we'll come over, let's do a quick new project. Yeah, this is a bit of a goofy thing. But we'll come, I'll just add instrument track, get a note instrument. All right, so I'll just randomly throw some notes in. Okay, and let's say we're going to quantize this to F major, so I'll quantize the pitches. And so when we look at our particular pitches, we'll see A sharp when we're in the key of F. So what we could do is, if we go to a chord track, and I know this is kind of an awkward workaround, but we go to a chord track, we can put in, like at the beginning, we'll just say, okay, I want to put in an F chord. So we're going to define kind of the key of the particular song. All right, so now we see this as A. So once we've defined the key from the chord track scale, then that will automatically map, and this is based on a preference. If we go to, I think, event display chords, you could say, so go to preferences, to event display, chords and pitches, and say N harmonics from chord track. All right, so with that, I'm going to paste the Zoom meetup one more time, and then we'll slowly migrate over to Zoom. Thank you for all the questions. Just one quick housekeeping note. So Tuesday is a holiday in the United States next week, so we're going to be doing the live stream on Monday instead. So it'll be Monday, July 3rd at 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, just a heads up with that. So again, Tuesday is a holiday, so the live stream will be on excuse me, on Monday instead of Tuesday, and we'll do Monday and Friday next week. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start the Zoom meeting here. And of course, as I start, it has to install updates. All right, so we see Benny. We give it a couple minutes. Brian Sawyer. John Barry. All right. All right, so we have Jan, we have Marcos. Great to see Marcos. Jay, Uno Momento, got in, good. All right, we have Hani on. All right, so it looks like people are getting it. We have Soren from Sweden. All right, we have Jeremiah. Great to see everyone. All right. All right. There's some more people migrating over. We'll give it a couple minutes and then we'll stop the live stream. All right, so I just see, hi Greg, is it possible to step input audio clips / events? So you can insert audio events, and we can maybe show that on Monday's live stream. But you know, it's not step input like audio, like Midi, but if you have it in a sampler track, you could also do step input that way. All right, we'll just get going for another minute or two. All right, so we have Thomas Van Dyke. Great to see Thomas on. And then we'll end the live stream and migrate over. All right, and we have Nick. Always wonderful to see Nick. John Barry is looking very vacation-like. You know, his background there from the English Riviera. It looks better. Looks pretty Hawaiian or South Pacific. All right, so we have yeah. So we have just a quick question. What's the Zoom meeting for? So it's really just to kind of get together and socialize and get to know each other better. So it's all in just, you know, really fascinating topics of discussion as well. So this is a question from the live stream. Okay, so we'll give it another minute with David M. and Michael Teams joining.
Hey Greg.
Yeah.
I lost my other profile about Facebook. If you wish to add my newer one.
Okay.
Just saying because I believe you noticed that I am not posting anything.
Is it the Marcos Gomez art profile? Okay.
My other Facebook because of the configuration about the generation passwords. You know,
Oh.
I formatted my iPhone.
Access. That must have been fun. Yeah, I will go ahead and I think I have a friend request from you on the Marcos Gomez art, so I'll go ahead and respond to that. All right, so I'm going to end the meeting on the live stream, and then so migrate over. Give me just a second.